Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Last Guardian walkthrough, and we're currently being mesmerised by the green army of bad touch, eye shield wielding bad people, I suppose you should say. We don't have too much left of the game now, we're coming up to the end, but there's still a little ways to go as we scale the Alabaster Tower, but before then, we have a date with another Guardian, and shit's about to get real. But do you see the interesting stereoscopic effect they've got going here? You can look at the eye on the left. Do you see how it's got the two variants of blue that gives it almost like 3D impression? It's got a couple of reds in there. It's a really interesting looking effect, that. I think it looks nice. It's definitely something I approve of. Something I don't approve of is this particular moment here. So, this is essentially conveying that the relationship between boy and beast has got to the point now where Trico will actively ignore his fear to save you. It's a pretty decent moment when you first get here, and it's a milestone in the relationship of the two characters. But the problem with it is it's immediately cuckolded by the gameplay on the next sequence where you have to fight. Because now Trico has finally conquered his fear to save you, you would think he would realise that there's really nothing to fear by those crazy eye things, right? Well, guess what? The next encounter we're on, it's going to be just like every other encounter. There's going to be people with those shields, and Trico's going to be just as terrified as he was, almost as if he completely forgot that he had that wonderful realisation, epiphany moment that there's nothing to fear but fear itself, and I need to save the small boy. So the next time we come into combat, he's gonna go and relapse completely, as if all this progress was never made, and it goes back to being very video gamey, where I have to push the shield people over so that Trico can kick ass. And to me, it's not good. That is a milestone. That is overcoming something. That is a character moment that should have had a resounding effect on gameplay, and it doesn't. It's almost completely ignored, which is a shame, but I understand it because it's a video game. Anyhow, we're going to be doing some mild platforming to hopefully help Trico get up here. I really appreciate the look of the crumbling building. This is probably one of the areas of the game where I think the visuals look the best. They've definitely just really nailed a great look of the brick and mortar coming apart there. This is a great game visually. There's a lot of visual elements in it that I think are absolutely wonderful. But I'm going to be talking about some other things, guys, because there's a lot of the stuff I want to say about this game I've said in my review, which has now been recorded. It's like 22 minutes of me discussing just the shame and the blessing that is this game, as it slow-mos again and Trico catches us with his tail. Can't help but feel like that would have been more epic if it had been sped up, but you know, that's just me. I watched Starship Troopers the other day, and I really liked that movie. If you've never seen it, it is a Paul Verhoeven movie, I think. And it's essentially a future where there are these insects that are trying to colonize certain parts of the universe, and they're going to war with Earth. And there's a wonderful, self-aware social commentary in this movie, where a lot of the script is super insulting towards this nation of dumb insects, even though they've got some kind of smart bug. And then this wonderful motif of, we're not going to let them take over the universe, that's our job, which I really, really appreciate. It's very tongue-in-cheek, it's very schlocky, and it's just a great movie. It's got good old Casper Van Diem in the lead, the guy who went on to do almost nothing, and he plays Rico, of Rico's Roughnecks, I think they're called, aren't they? And the CGI is not aged the best, but it's not bad. It's still got a really good visceral impact to it as they shoot the bugs and they explode, and when the bugs do damage to humans, there's a lot of practical effects in there that just really add to how that movie feels, and it's just got a good sense of humour, it moves at a good clip, and there's a nice combination of character development and massive action set pieces of just ridiculous warfare between bugs and these soldiers. But there's a bit of it that I always used to think about, and it's during the training. During the training there is an incident where Rico tells one of his squaddies to take his helmet off because it's obscuring his vision. And at the time, they're using live ammunition. And one of the teammates falls over, this lady, she falls over, she kind of shoots as she falls, and unfortunately the gun hits the guy who's just took his helmet off, and it just ventilates his cranium, just straight up, Paul Verhoeven, gore fest, amazing looking. I just pulled out my headphones doing hand gestures sequence in this movie. Let me just plug this in. That's the kind of thing I would edit out of audio, because I do a lot of audio editing, but that was quite funny, so I'll leave it in. Hopefully it's not too loud, guys. I apologise in advance. And this person dies, and there's a court-martial about how, you know, Rico was in charge. Rico commanded him to take his helmet off on this practice run while live ammunition was in, and he ends up getting in trouble, obviously, and he gets whipped by this really, like, sadomasochistic looking dude who's fucking loving it. And Clancy Brown's like, bite down on this, son, it'll help. And then there's this whole poignant moment of him releasing it from his mouth as he gives in to the pain and all that grandeur. But it's the whole getting hit in the head thing, right? They're using live ammunitions on a training run. He takes this helmet off, and the helmet, when you look at it, guys, it looks like a piece of plastic. It really does. It looks like if you were riding a motorcycle and you put that on, the only thing left would be like, if you stalled the motorcycle and fell sideways, that helmet would shatter. It really doesn't look like it would protect anything. So I always wondered, what would have happened if he'd have had the helmet on? Because I'm assuming we're meant to look at it from the perspective of, this is some kind of future polymer weave, some kind of special, like, nanotechnology, super awesome science fiction shit that they've got in these helmets that makes them look more than just a shitty piece of plastic. Would it have stopped the bullet? Because to look at it, doesn't look like it would stop the bullet. And when you look at these bullets, they're hitting these bugs really hard. They're pretty high caliber. They're not high enough, in my opinion, because that's another criticism I always had of Starship Troopers. They're all shooting these machine guns, and these bugs take, like, a full clip to die. Yet they have weapons with higher caliber. Why would they not just use guns with bigger calibers to kill them quickly? I don't get why they would use a round that doesn't put them down quickly. Like, bullets are designed to destroy, and the less amount of bullets you need, the better. And you have quite a big clip, because it's always better than having fewer, isn't it? You can kill a human pretty quickly with a few bullets, especially if you put them in the right places. So you would think that these people who are going to war with these insects would have some kind of standardized rifle that is a much higher caliber, because it doesn't have the right amount of stopping power. And there's an amazing moment where the underslung shotgun, the second attachment of the rifle, kills this thing in like 3 shotgun pumps. So if a shotgun is so effective, why not just revolutionize shotgun technology and have like a fucking automatic shotgun with a drum barrel? And everybody has one of those and then they win, right? But for whatever reason, they don't think like that. But this helmet would not have stopped a bullet, I don't think. If that bullet is of a high caliber, it'd have just done the same thing. Like, I don't understand why the helmet is such a big deal. And it must be because space tech. That's the only thing I can think of. You wear the helmet, you would have never died. It would have saved his life. But I still think that would have gone straight through that helmet and split his head like a watermelon, and we would still be in the same situation. The real punishment should be the clumsy bitch that fell down and shot him. And unfortunately for her, she does get sent home. She gets immediately unenlisted, and she does the walk of shame. But I never got the emphasis on the helmet. I understand he's a commanding officer, he went against direct protocol, and that should be punished because it's just military 101, isn't it? But bringing it down to just the basics, do you think that helmet would have stopped that bullet? Because I don't. I really don't. It looked like shit, dude. It looks like I could crush it with my hands, and I'm not a strong dude, you know? I put 5 kilograms up on my weights the other day for a 20 kilogram dumbbell, and I managed to do 5 dumbbell curls from standing. It was ridiculous, the core strength it needed, that I just simply didn't have at that point. And I shouldn't have done it, because you're meant to go up incrementally, and 5 kilograms, in my opinion, is a bit too much when you're not used to it, but I'm comfortable with 15. I thought, let's shock my body today, let's do something silly, let's just add a whole ton of weight to this. Bumped it up, and doing 5 made me make noises that animals can't even make. It was hilarious. Yet, when I did a concentration curl, which is the ones that Arnie used to do, if you ever watched Pumping Iron, where you kind of space your legs, you bend your knees slightly, you lean forward, and then from a straight arm, fully extended arm, you curl towards your chest, up towards your shoulder, I could do 10 of those fine when it was just straight bicep. But when it was everything, because of course when you do dumbbells, your entire body is kind of used as it's not a compound motion in per se, I don't think, but you're using a lot of things to balance, and you're using a lot of other body parts as well, which you've got to be careful for, which is why you want to have as best form as you can. Because immediately when I started doing it, I knew, like, when I got to the top, I was like, Jesus Christ, I could already feel my shoulder getting ready to start participating, and that's not what you want, you know. I didn't swing, I didn't use momentum, but it was a fucking tough kill. And I got to 3 and I was just like, I'm already starting to cheat, so there's no point in this, but I continued, and I did a good hour's worth with it, and then I woke up the next day feeling like I was dying, because it kicked me so good. But it felt great, and I feel great now, so I'm definitely going to be increasing the weight incrementally, and then every so often do something that's much heavier, just to be like, boom, fucker, stop being so comfortable, buddy. And it was awesome. But once again, I'm not the strongest of guys, you know. I don't do strength and conditioning training, I just do hypertrophic training. And I could have crushed those fucking helmets, so I just really don't think it would have been all that effective. But this is the Guardian fight, guys. Best part of the game right here. This is where the last Guardian should have focused. Because these moments, really exciting, really interesting, and you're actually useful too. You're the only deciding factor in this fight, because they're two equal opponents, two equal forces coming together, and you are the deciding factor. I really enjoyed that. So once you've hit the bridge, you want to drop down onto these fellas, and you want to go to the opposite side of the bridge. The side with the log is not the correct side. You can completely ignore the spear chucker guys. We'll get them later on. But if you come over here, there's a lever to drop like a portcullis, but you don't need to do this one. You want to drag the Guardian's tail and then drop it on the Guardian. And don't worry about Trico, it looks really sad and really bad, because he's getting mauled on the throat like some kind of lion and gazelle. But he never gets fully fucked. He's perpetually in a state of being tortured. It's pretty sadistic, and there's another sadistic one at the end of the game too, where it's really sad if you've got a relationship with Trico, but at the same time, this is a state. It never proceeds any worse than this. It's a perpetual state of suffering. So he's never going to be in any more pain than he is right now, and he's never going to die, so you can take your time, even though you want to rush because you want to save him, because he's your friend. So drop the gate on, there you go, on his tail, that gets him off. If he's anything like a dog, I could have just grabbed his tail and he would have turned around, because dogs do not like you grabbing their tails. And I don't mean the genitalia, you perverts. But look at it, everything's kicking off, they're falling between bridges. I'm involved, I'm taking part, it's exciting. It's such a contrast from all the other gameplay. And I just wish that throughout this adventure, there might have been 5 or 6 Guardians, all slightly different, all with different armors and, you know, different qualities and different ways of combating them. And there was just these sequences where you just go toe-to-toe and solve these environmental puzzles to overcome them. I think it could have been wonderful. I really do, and I think it would have made the game better. But as it stands, this part just stands out so strongly, because it was the part of the game that got my blood moving the most. It was really, really good, and I wonder if it's because there was so few moments like this that this bit felt so good, and maybe it wouldn't have felt so good if there was more of them. But I just don't feel that that's true. I feel like it would have been fine. Oh, this is hilarious too, watch this. So all I do when I get up at the top of this chain is I hold forward on the PlayStation Analog to run up the beam. I've played Super Monkey Ball on master levels where you have literally millimeters of landscape to conduct your monkey business, and I've passed those levels, yet watch this bullshit. How the fuck does that even work? How does that work? How can you do that? I'm holding forward, I'm not deviating, I don't have like cerebral palsy or Parkinson's. I'm just still, I'm tranquil like a damn lake. I'm the... what does they call it on the moon? Is it Lake of Tranquility? I can't remember. I'm pretty damn still, guys. I've got a sniper's hand at that point. I'm holding my breath. And I fall. For no reason. And then when we get up again, all you have to do, guys, is hold the analog in a direction. I've been doing it since I was born. You know? Because I was born when the N64 came out, of course. Like, look at that! No different! I did the same fucking thing, although I compensated more to the right that time, so I didn't get bubbled off by some invisible bounce moment. But that's pretty fucking stupid, if you ask me. Really stupid. And then you push this and the fight is over. But a really exciting sequence, I like that section a lot. But it is kind of, you know, it's The Last Guardian 101, isn't it? Moments of greatness punctuated by moments of just... This is a video game, but it's not one that I would come back to anytime soon. You know, I was playing Murdered Soul Suspect. Anybody played that? That is a weird video game. I started thinking that game sucked, and then by the end of it, there was some kind of weird endearing quality of it was really tranquil, and I kind of got into it. You'll notice this is the second time I've paused. This is to try and skip cutscenes, because we're in a speed run, remember? But you can't skip any of the cutscenes in this game, because they're all in fucking engine. The only ones you can skip are the ones that are in the... Watch this, by the way. How did I even do that? That's another mini-game in Super Monkey Ball, when you have to do the drops onto the targets in the water and get the score, which is really difficult to do. Some of them are super insane. If you've ever played that mini-game, which was amazing. I don't know why Super Monkey Ball didn't get ported. Look at this, by the way. Wonderful animation stepping here. Stutter step. Coming up with all kinds of advanced tech. Can you imagine if Super Monkey Ball could be played online? Can it be played online? Is there somewhere where we can play that online? Nah, that would be a fucking stream, because Super Monkey Ball was hilarious. Can you remember the one we all had boxing gloves? You just punching each other, trying to ring each other out? That's a good time, dude. What else did they have? There was the weird boxing one. There was the stupid racing that wasn't that good. There was the bowling, which was amazing. I loved the bowling. There was the flying one. I can't remember if there was something like tennis. There was probably tennis, but I don't remember. Super Monkey Ball is a beast game. I really like that game. And I still have the original on the GameCube behind me. God, it was a good game. It was a hard game as well. Really, really tough, but super fast respawns on fails. Infinite lives when you got to a certain threshold after playing. Beautiful design. I really like that game. But Trico's all knackered because he's just been in a big fight. So I think there's 4 barrels here that you can experiment with. Look at that. This is the game showing us a vignette to tell us and remind us how to use the shield. It's also a vignette you can't skip, which is wonderful. But I've tried to leave quite a lot of stuff in this walkthrough. Normally I would trim out absolutely everything, but I just don't think it suits this kind of nature. These are already long format videos. It's already a little bit more casual because of, you know, I'm just talking about shit really, aren't I? Just rambling because there's nothing much to say. And that's the problem. I have what, 5.5 hours worth of footage to fill with voice. What do you say about this game for 5 hours? You know, that you can only shit on it so much and say that so much of it is bad before you just flogging a dead horse. And you can compliment it, but the compliments will only last so long. And then you can talk about the mechanics, but there's barely any, so that you can't do that for too long. And then you can go into the more obscure, you know, video games or art kind of debates, but a lot of those are all well traversed, and a lot of the people that would compare this to art are the people that are already convinced that they like the game, you know. They're not the people who are on the fence, they're not the people who have played it and think it's lacking. I watched Jim... What's that guy's name? Jim Sterling, is it? Jim Pression guy? Jim Inquisition, or whatever it is? Jimquisition? The dude from Escapists, who's really big on YouTube, which is nice to see somebody doing reviews that aren't cookie cutter. And immediately on his like impression video of the game, he was saying how he just, you know, he thought he was really going to like it, but he just kind of didn't. And he was talking about how Trico struggled to pick up the barrels and stuff, and I was wondering, because I'd not played it at the point when I watched it. I was just sat there kind of thinking, like, wow, I wonder why he doesn't like it. I wonder what there is in it to not like, because Eco was a very specific kind of game, but I don't think there was anything in it that I immensely disliked other than the premise of the game. I'm not a big fan of escorting a vulnerable party. It's not my favourite mechanic, but that was the game, so you kind of put that aside. And with Shadow, I like almost everything about Shadow, you know. Borderline fanboy of that game because I really, really enjoy it. Performance-wise, it's terrible. It runs at like 15 frames per second. But it's still a marvel of technology, and it's because the PlayStation 2 just wasn't powerful enough for that game, you know. And if you play the PlayStation 3 remaster, it's actually a really good remaster, so you've got another version of the game that runs a lot more consistently and still stays true to that vision, unlike the Bioshock collection and like the Arkham collection and stuff, some of those terrible ones that just were half-arsed. Like the Silent Hill one. Isn't the Silent Hill HD remaster famous for being super subpar? Which is a shame, because Silent Hill and Silent Hill 2 and all that, they're pretty iconic games at this point. A lot of people love those games, so it would be nice for them to have a redone version of those games done well. And that's what we get wrong, I think, with all this remake bullshit that we're in at the moment. This fetishistic remake, just madness. It's a mania, isn't it? It's full-blown hysteria. We're remaking everything. We're remaking games that aren't even as old as the new fucking consoles. Like, what? Doesn't make sense to me. And it's a quick buck, let's face it. It's just a port to another system that makes it run a bit better. And they're so half-assed, some of them, that they're not even worth looking at. And it's just greed, isn't it? It's the whole Hollywood greed thing of, oh, someone in Korea made a really good film, let's remake it and shit all over it. It's that kind of idea. And it's a shame, because I do think that there's a market for bringing back those games. Because, let's face it, guys, a lot of the games being released now are not as good as those games. It's the sad realization, isn't it? But all I want from any kind of HD remaster, and I'm not talking straight remakes, because I think remake and remaster are different. I think remaster is just a more beautiful, higher performance version of the game. The game itself is generally untouched, minus a few bugs or glitches or poor balancing that they wanted to change, but they didn't have the tools at the time to do so. Everything else should just be prettier, shinier, and at a faster, more stable frame rate. That's all that should be. The remakes, I think, should be just like what they did with Resident Evil 1. It should be a completely new take on it, with a new engine and new everything. That's why I think they should make the distinction between those two things. Because we get a lot of things that tell us that they're remakes, and they're just shinier versions, you know. Some of them tell us that they're HD remasters, and then they change a lot of the art assets and change the lighting and make the game look different. I don't get why they do that. I don't understand artistic embellishments upon someone else's work. Nobody asked for a mustache on the Mona Lisa. You know, we asked you to remake the game. And I think that's why Bluepoint are probably one of the better people for doing those, because they seem to be fair. You know, they seem to be honest to the source material. And that's all I would ever ask, personally, of any kind of remaster. But they change so many things. Look at Final Fantasy X. Why did they change the music? I understand that in this age of higher quality, people might not appreciate MIDI as much as they used to, but there was nothing wrong with that old music. At all. It was a product of the time, it was a product of the technology, and it was great music. So when they completely change it, you've got a bedrock of memories attached to this music that will never go away, and the moment it deviates, you immediately know. And it's just like, oh, I can't do this, this is not right, this is not how it should be, the universe is off tilt. What is wrong? You know, the laws of entropy are failing us, we're doomed. And that's how you feel. And I felt that really recently, because there's a band called The Contortionist, and they have an album called Exoplanet, which is a really, really stellar album, and I love it a lot. This is an album that I put songs on my intros to YouTube videos way back when, before I had a partnership, before I could even put ads on my videos. So I used to put clips of music at the beginning from songs that I really liked at the time, which just goes to show, you know, how much I enjoyed that album. And they've remastered it, they've like remixed it. And Primal Directive is the first song on that album. And there's a wonderful chorus where he's kind of like auto-tuned, and he just goes along saying, "We have been defined." And he does it all auto-tuned and fancy. And the mixing's off. It's completely off. Way different balance. And I hate it. Absolutely hate it. Can't stand it. Turned it off. Didn't even get to the next songs. Didn't want to. Instead, got the old album, put it on, boom, sounds like it should sound. And that's just who I am, I guess. That's just one of the things that I appreciate, and I think that translates directly to games. I don't want them to fuck with what's good. I want them to fuck with what's bad. You know? Leave the good stuff. Just make it look nicer. You know? If you're going to remake something like Dark Souls, don't fuck with it. Don't change things. Don't make stuff work differently. Fix the frame rate. Make the game run good. You know? Fix the connection issues. That's all you need to be focusing on. Don't focus on anything that isn't necessary. It's superfluous and it's unneeded, and it's a waste of effort, I think. But that's what they do. You know, they fix the wrong things. They focus on the wrong stuff. Like, look at the COD 4 one. Somebody asked me a question the other day. Do I think that the remaster is inferior because Veteran's easier? And the short answer is yes. But not because I think that by Veteran being easier, it's a better experience. I think Veteran on the old COD 4 is a miserable experience, but it's incredibly difficult. And the point of difficulty is not necessarily to be fun. It's to kick your ass sometimes. The best difficulties are the ones that are fun as well, but it's so difficult to do, especially with first-person shooters, because first-person shooters are too specific. If you make them too flexible, they're too easy. If you make them too ridiculous, they don't feel like you stand a chance, so you have to just up the bullshit and do everything you can to not engage anybody on a fair, battlefield. COD 4 was one of those games where you couldn't pop out of cover and challenge people because you got fucked. You had to wallbang and flash and like literally hide and hope they weren't looking the right way and like lay on your belly for 90% of the campaign to stay alive. The new game isn't like that. They've tweaked it in a lot of ways, and in a lot of ways it's a better experience because it isn't like that shitfest it was. But it's an easier experience, and thus it doesn't feel like veteran. It doesn't feel like a classic veteran. So there's a diminishment of that value, in my opinion. But I don't think that the remaster is good for several reasons, and none of them have anything to do with difficulty. I don't think it's very good because they changed how the multiplayer works. They changed the connection. They changed the sound design. They changed the way certain things worked. They changed the spawns. Why would you change spawns on games where I know the spawns and I know exactly where people are supposed to spawn? So when they don't, all you do is fuck with what I love. Why would they do that? My problems with that game are all of the things that they've changed. The only thing they changed for the better, in my opinion, is adding hit markers to the campaign. That is literally it. Everything else, I don't like. I don't like any of the obtrusive shit that pops up on the screen just because it pops up in the newer ones. I don't like any of the shit that they've done with the guns to make them sound different because they don't sound as good as they used to. I don't like any of it. I think, empirically, it is a worse version of COD 4. I think the version you can get on PC is a considerably better game. Everything about it is better, in my opinion. And I just don't like the remaster at all. That is why you've not seen any gameplay from it. That is why you only saw me do a walkthrough. I have not played it since. I might not. Because I don't like that version of the game. Some people will, because that's what people are like. I saw a video where Blame Truth was saying that he thinks it's exactly the same as COD 4. It's like, Blame Truth, you were the first fucking YouTuber that did Call of Duty commentaries. You were the first one I saw anyway. You were way back when. Way back on the Dazzle days, and you're telling me you think this is the same? I lost respect in that moment for a man I had a lot of respect for. Because it is not the same, guys, and I'm not even somebody that put that much time into COD 4. I put like 4 days into it, which is no compared to some people. But to me, that's a lot. And I remember things, and that's one of them. So I just had a difficult time accepting a lot of the changes because I didn't ask for them. And it goes back to the point I'm trying to speak of here. I think we do these remasters wrong. I think they're too busy changing things that never needed to be touched instead of adding things that would have worked. And it all comes back to the same stuff with me. Why don't they add instead of changing? If you're gonna fuck with things artistically, why not add stuff? It seems simple to me. You know, if you want to mess around with how mechanics work, why not add a part where the mechanics can do something new? Add a new level. Look at the new version of Duke Nukem 3D. Duke Nukem 3D is a game that's been released so many times. I'm surprised if there's anybody on this planet who hasn't played of it or heard it. Played of it. There you go. That's a weird way of saying it. Who hasn't played it, sorry, or heard of it. Because it's everywhere. It's like, you can pick a calculator up and play fucking Duke Nukem nowadays. So what did they do? Other than sell us a slightly better, less blurry looking version of a quite pixelated old game, they added new levels. And do you know what they did? They got the original composer, I believe, from id. Oh, not id, sorry, it wasn't id, was it? I forget who it was. Was it Sierra? I can't remember. 3D Realms, wasn't it? Was it 3D Realms? I should really stop this and look it up, but I'm going to be ignorant. You guys know who it was. I can't for the moment remember. They got the original person who did the music to come back, and then they got one of the original level designers to come back, and they built a new zone with new assets and new details and new levels. How cool is that? Can you imagine Dark Souls with that? Can you imagine Arkham with that? You know, there's so many games that are just getting shoved in our mouths. Imagine Bioshock if they added a new zone. It might suck, but then you don't have to play that version of the game if you don't want to, because the PC version's better anyway. You know? PC version runs better, looks better, and is the original version of the game with none of the weird lighting changes. Like, the glitches are the stuff that should be fixed, but nowadays they will be fixed, because name a game that comes out that doesn't have a patch. I don't think it can be done. I don't think it exists anymore. We live in I watched a funny video on YouTube the other day. I don't know what it was called. It was like a random clickbait video, and it was doing highlights of other people's videos, which makes it even more, like, amorphous and hard to describe. But it was somebody talking about Playdate. And it was talking about people buying new games on release date, and this dude would like slap them in the face and say, "What are you doing, you stupid nerd? You should get them on the Playdate." And it was this satirical like sketch of essentially what games are now, where they come out and then 5 months later it's the game that they were meant to be after 9 million patches. And it's talking about this playdate, which is when you should be buying these games 7 months after launch, where you get a finished product. And it's really true, and it was kind of funny. I didn't watch all of it, but for what I saw I had a little bit of a laugh, and like, that's spot on, that I like that. And then I quickly moved on. But it's true, you know? Games just don't work the same anymore. They're way more complicated, they're way more rushed than they used to be, and then they come out with way more problems. And a lot of the times, some of the problems were the best parts of games. Don't you think it's funny that there are these glitches that exist that have gone on to become mechanics in games? If these were to exist now, we'd patch them. And they would never exist. And they would never become these wonderful archetypes of gaming. Like, if Street Fighter came out today, Street Fighter 2, and combos were discovered, they'd fucking patch it and you'd never see it again. Imagine that, a fighting game without combos. Like, and there's some joker in the comments like, what, you mean Street Fighter 5? Like, no, stop being mean. Oh, by the way, guys, this is another jump that I kept failing for unknown reasons. This is just a weird detection on this jump, and on my first playthrough, did it first time, didn't even realise you could have trouble here. On this recording, I missed this jump 5 times. There's no reason for it either. I don't know why, but the perspective, the jump, the detection, a million variables came together here to make it so that I just could not hit this jump. So you'll notice I'm super tentative, because every time you do it, you had to do this entire sequence again. Look at it. Simple. But I missed that so many times. Horrible experience for me there. I look at things like jump cancelling. Jump cancelling was something that the developers thought about, but I don't think they realised just the potential that mechanic could give. That'd be patched. It'd be gone. Removed. Too powerful. Removed. Breaks the game. Affects balance of the game. Look at bunny hopping. Bunny hopping is something that's been around since the Quake days. It is a mechanic that is ubiquitous with the Source engine because there's something built into the programming side of that engine that enables both bunny hopping and air strafing, and when done together by a very skilled and practiced player, you can achieve ridiculous things. Gabe Newell openly stated in an interview back in like Half-Life 1 days or something along those times that they do not approve of bunny hopping. They do not think that it was like a valuable feature. It clearly wasn't intended, and it's not something that they supported. And I think it's one of the most fascinating mechanics ever, because it enables skill-based movement. And it always comes back to Titanfall 2 because it's the first real exposure I had to it, because I'm not a PC gamer. I played Quake back in the day, but I didn't bunny hop because I didn't know about it. I was just running around shooting people with rockets and jumping and shit. I was having fun. But it's such an interesting thing. That's the type of stuff that'd probably get patched now. Just because. All these wonderful things, that these serendipitous inventions that happen, we could be missing out on because they're immediately removed when they're discovered. It's so strange. And it forces a laziness with the developers. And I hate to call developers lazy, because I appreciate that they probably do like 18-hour days. There'll be times when they sleep in their office. There'll be times when they don't see their family for a week. You know, these people put in a hell of a lot of hours to achieve what they do, and making a video game is no small feat. It can be very easy as a critic to be just like, this game is shit, it sucks. But even then, thousands of man-hours went into making the video game that sucks. And it's still a lot of time, it's still a lot of effort, it's still a lot of passion, even if it's misplaced or misaligned. But what else can you say then? Oh, it's okay, we don't have to get that fixed for deadline, we'll fix that 2 weeks later with a patch. It has to be laziness. It has to be laziness or over-ambition, and I'm sorry, but in this sequelitis, this vomitorium of sequels, I don't see over-ambition, I don't see any ambition, I just see tired tropes that are reliable and sell. That's what I see. And I know that might sound harsh, and I oftentimes do sound harsh, but it's true, you know? Look at Overwatch. Overwatch won like Game of the Year, didn't it, on that TV show? Everybody loves Overwatch. Overwatch is this thing that's blown up and become this competitive esport and really addictive game that anybody can play because it's got a very low skill floor and a very high skill ceiling when it comes to, you know, team cooperation. It's TF2, guys. It's TF2 with a couple of new additions, logical new additions in the time it's took from TF2 to where we are now. That's all it is. It is a cool, cartoony, team-based, fun game. That is literally what TF2 were 10 years ago, probably longer. And I'm not saying this to derive it from Overwatch's success or its quality, because everybody likes it, it looks like a great game. But all they've done is taken a formula that was already very successful and very fun, and they've added that Blizzard spin to it. You know, nothing about that game is original in any conceivable way. It's just using existing paradigms, but nailing it because they're very clever. And everybody's loving it and everybody's is adoring it. But is there a single mechanic in that game that's new? No. And there doesn't need to be, because it's exactly what it has to be. It's exactly what it needed to be at the time. And it resonated with a lot of people, so Battleborn got the hump, which is unfortunate for those guys, because they effectively did the same thing. They just did it slower, and Overwatch decimated the landscape, and unfortunately, the quality just wasn't there with the other one. But that's what modern gaming is at this moment in time. It's everything you've seen before, done a little bit more shinier.